Good morning, everyone. I'd like to begin our first meeting in 2012, and with that we have our public speakers. Hillary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have one speaker this morning, Mike Rowe, also known as Murray Bowden.
Mike, those of you who don't watch television, Mike Rowe gets the dirty jobs. Cleans up all the... I'm here to talk about the Bridges and Tunnels Committee report. If you look in there in the minutes last month, I asked for a meeting to meet with them. On Friday, I'm meeting with the chief engineer of the Port Authority to discuss lines. I met with Ronnie. She sends her regards, by the way, a couple of weeks ago. On February 8th, I'm meeting with the executive director of New York State Thruway to discuss some stuff. But Bridges and Tunnels, they run a good show if this was 1998, but this is 2012. I brought two books for the board to use for references. I'm going to leave them with you. The first is called How to Lie with Statistics by Darrell Huff. What they're doing is creating statistics that are meaningless, and they're impressing you with their knowledge, which they don't have. The second book I'd like to leave with you is called The Emperor's New Clothes by Hans Christian Andersen. They're out there running naked. The closest parallel to this situation is the Maine Turnpike Authority, also about toll booths, where they wanted to build a whole new set of toll booths in a different area, and the executive director hired consultants and everything else, while 16 miles down the road, New Hampshire already had high-speed tolls in there. They were saying this couldn't, another 15 seconds should do it. The executive director was eventually indicted, fined $500,000 to pay back. They're redoing their toll booths. And, one last thing. If anybody's interested, this is a book of the pictures that my grandson and my wife and I took in Paris last summer. We went on an intergenerational trip with Elder Hostel. It was fantastic. If any of you grandparents want to take your grandchildren on a trip, thank you all. It has been an extreme pleasure to be here. You've taught me a lot. I work with a lot of interesting people here. Thank you all for letting me come.
That concludes the public speaking, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And again, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our January meeting. I'd like to begin today by expressing my gratitude. As you all know, 2 weeks ago I was confirmed, and I was honored to be confirmed by the State Senate as the new chairman, and I'm honored to be chairing my first meeting, which I guarantee you I will do everything I can not to make mistakes in the first meeting. I want you all to know how I'm looking forward to this new role. And as you all know from the conversations I've had with almost all of you, if not, no, actually with all of you, that I'm committed to moving this organization forward. I'm sad to announce two different things this morning. First, Pat Foy, who is stepping down and has stepped down from the board. Pat did a fantastic job serving this board since May of 2010, and you all know how he ably serves all of New York. I look forward, and I think everyone at the MTA looks forward to working with him in his new role as the executive director of the Port Authority. And I'm also sad to report that one of our board members who's been here since 2001, Nancy Chevelle, has also announced that she will be stepping down from the board, and that today will be her last board meeting. And with that, Nancy's asked to say some remarks, and I'd like to turn it over to Nancy.
Okay. In my 30-year professional career, this has been the absolute highlight for me, being able to serve on this board. And that is completely in part because of my fellow board members that come to this organization with a wealth of experience and intellect from all different areas. However, we all are here, the board members that I currently work with and the many that have come and gone, we're all here for the common goal to serve the riding public. And the management and the team that I've worked with that are the employees of the MTA are a group of diligent, hardworking, selfless individuals that if I was fortunate to own or run a transportation organization, I would love any of them to work with me and next to me. And lastly, I hope all of you realize how lucky you are that Joe will be running the MTA now. I hope he feels as lucky as we should feel. Because I know it's his first meeting, but I've read all I can read about you, and already you're being described as tireless and patient, and I know you have massive challenges ahead of you. And I do also hope in closing that the many workers of the MTA that have had to bear the burden of the economy that we're in right now, and also the riding public that has had to bear the burden through fare increases and schedule changes and schedule eliminations, I hope that the whole other large group of MTA workers has to realize that on as small a level as possible that they're going to have to bear the burden of the situation the MTA is in right now. Thank you so much. I'm very emotional and sad right now.
Thank you, Nancy. Someday, at another meeting, we'll have some kind of recognition of both you and Pat. I would like to thank you for your kind words and your service to the MTA. And I was thinking as you were saying it, my last day on the board in 2001 was your first day on the board of 2001. So there is actually some symmetry to this in many ways. However, I'm sorry there is, because I'd love to have you stay on, because what a great board member you are. Any other, Mark, if you want?
Nancy is, this is a sad day that Nancy is leaving. Nancy is our third most senior director now, having served for 11 years. She is exceeded only by Jim Sedor, who I think was appointed by Governor Dewey, and has been continuing to serve his life sentence for unpaid public service. And our Vice Chairman Andrew Saul, who took unpaid public service to an extreme by working more than full-time between the time when Jay Walder left and Joe Lodo was fortunately confirmed by the New York Senate. So this is 11 years of unpaid public service. Nancy, about 7 months ago, announced that she was engaged to be married to Paul McCartney. News of this event appeared in every newspaper, every radio station, and every TV station, in every city, town, village, and hamlet on the planet. And the same thing happened when she became Lady McCartney about 2 months ago. Nancy and Paul. Paul was accurately described as the world's greatest living performing artist, and Nancy was described as an MTA board member. We are so grateful to you for, as you ascended into stardom, a little bit of your stardust sort of fell off on us. I don't know about the rest of you, but people would come up to me on the street who I never saw before in my life and say, "Are you on the same board as Nancy? What is she like?" Well, you can see what she's like from what she said today. She is thorough, dedicated, intelligent, effective, poised, and elegant. And she is stayed the same old Nancy even through today. I didn't really talk to her about why she decided to step down, but I can imagine what went through her mind. Being Nancy, she said, I'm going to spend a third or a half or a quarter of my time in New York, and I can get to most meetings. But I might miss 2 or 3 or 4, and I can't do that to the rest of the board members. Well, you were wrong. We would have taken 80%, 70%, 60% of you, and that would have been more than sufficient. So as Joe so aptly said, thank you for your unpaid public service. Thank you for your dedication. We will miss you, and most importantly, we wish you all the best for happiness and fulfillment in your new life ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy, I can't believe you're leaving me with Motley Crue.
Okay.
Joe?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'd like to
yes,
thank
Norman.
Nancy for all the help she's given me over the years here too, and I'd also, like to mention that she's done a wonderful job running her other full-time business, motor freight, and the employees over there share the same affection for you that the board members here do, and we wish you good luck. Buona fortuna. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we start the meeting today and go through the committee reports, there are a few issues I'd like to touch on. Monday at the Finance Committee meeting, Governor Cuomo's Deputy Secretary for Transportation, Karen Ray, came forward and spoke in the public speaking section to go over the executive budget and the restoration of all the monies and the promises that were made to the MTA by the governor and the legislative leaders to show the level of support that they have for the MTA. We appreciate that. The governor's budget does, in fact, restore all of the monies that were taken, that will be reduced by virtue of the cuts in the payroll mobility tax. It also includes the capital funding that we had put into the our request to the Capital Program Review Board, as well as increasing our bond cap as necessary and fulfilling our capital financing functions. With these vital projects and the jobs that can all move forward from this, we very much appreciate that. You should also know that as you approved at the last board meeting in December, we submitted the amended capital program to provide the last 3 years of funding we presented it to the Capital Program Review Board. With that, the minutes of our last meeting have been distributed to all members, including replacement page 3 to correct a formatting error. Are there any corrections, edits, omissions at all? There being none, I have a motion to approve the minutes.
I move they be adopted.
Seconded. Okay. All in favor? Say aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. I'm now happy to turn the floor over to MTA Vice Chairman Andrew Saul, who also chairs the Finance Committee, for our Finance Committee report. Andrew?
Thanks, Joe. There are 3 MTA headquarters and all agency action items this month. The first action item is to approve supplemental resolutions authorizing the issuance of refunding bonds and to approve the delegation of authority to take action to effectuate such refunding transactions. All is described on pages 32 to 90 in the materials distributed for this meeting. There is one change to the materials contained in the board book. An amended staff summary and changed pages for the supplemental resolutions were distributed yesterday to include the chair of the Finance Committee as one of the authorized officers to execute a refunding transaction. This change addresses comments made at the Finance Committee meeting. The second action item is to authorize and approve the issuance of new money bonds, notes, or other obligations to provide net proceeds sufficient to fund up to $1 billion of capital projects contained in approved capital programs of the transit, bus, and commuter systems, and to approve the delegation of authority to effectuate such transactions. All is described on pages 91 to 103 in the materials distributed for this meeting. The third action item is to approve the public tender of the Transportation Revenue Series 2002 B bonds and the issuance of the Transportation Revenue 2012 B refunding bonds, and to approve the taking of all actions related to the public tender and issuance of the refunding bonds. All is described on pages 104 to 105 in the materials distributed for this meeting. The Finance Committee recommends these 3 action items, and I move them. All in favor?
Excuse me, Joe. I abstain on 2 and 3. Thank you.
Duly noted. Motion carries.
Okay. There are 3...
One second. Alan?
Just wanted to mention that accompanying the conversation about the debt, there was a conversation that the agency would look to pursue to get relief from the fees that are charged with the issuance of these bonds?
I can respond to that. Yesterday I was in Albany and began the process with the Budget Division in discussing a waiver that the Budget Director has the right to do, and we've begun that process. So very, very much aware of the sense of the Board in that direction. Okay. Andrew?
Okay. There are 3 procurement actions in the total amount of $2,678,806. There are no non-competitive procurements. There are 2 competitive procurements in the amount of $1,899,000. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
Second. Any comments or questions? There being none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any nays? Motion carries.
There is 1 ratification action in the amount of $780,000. The committee recommends this ratification, and I move it.
Second.
Are there any questions, comments? There being none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? There being none, motion carries.
There are 9 real estate action items this month, which are described in the meeting materials. The committee recommends these real estate items, and I move them.
Second.
There are any questions or comments? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Joe, that concludes the Finance Committee report.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it. And now the report from the Transit Committee from its chairman, Mark LeBeau.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, the Transit Committee reports the following. There are 11 procurement actions totaling $15.2 million. There are 2 MTA New York City Transit non-competitive procurements in the total amount of $3.6 million. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
Any questions, comments? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
There are 6 competitive procurements, 4 for MTA New York City Transit and 2 for MTA Capital Construction, in the total amount of $8.9 million. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
Second. Any questions, comments? There being none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
There are 3 ratifications, 1 for MTA New York City Transit and 2 for MTA Capital Construction, in the total amount of $2.7 million. The committee recommends these ratifications, and I move them.
Is there a second? There's a second. Are there any comments or questions? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
This concludes Transit.
Thank you, Mark. And now the Bus Operations Committee report. Chairperson Nancy Chevelle.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the Bus Operations Committee met this month. However, there are no procurements. And lastly, thank you, Darrell, very, very much.
Okay. Thank you, Nancy. The Metro North Long Island Railroad Committee report is next. Its co-chairman, Mitch Pally, will give the report. Mitch?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Metro North and Long Island Railroad Committee met this month. Reports the following. There is 1 action item to approve a resolution adopting changes to the Long Island Railroad and Metro North Railroad rules of conduct to conform to a recent New York State law that prohibits smoking on the railroad's outdoor ticketing, boarding, and platform areas. The resolution also authorizes the railroads to take all necessary steps to conclude this rulemaking process in accordance with the State Administrative Procedure Act. The committee recommends this action item, and I move it.
Items been seconded. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
There are 7 procurement actions totaling $26,996,000. Of that, there are 3 non-competitive procurements, all for Metro North, in the total amount of $2,677,457. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
Mr. Chairman,
Second.
I'd like to be recorded as voting no on the Kawasaki item for failure to engage in competitive bidding or the RFP process.
Thank you. Are there any other further questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
There are 4 competitive procurements, 1 for Metro North and 3 for the MTA Capital Construction Company, in in the total amount of $24,319,308. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
Item's been seconded. Are there any questions, comments? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And there are no ratifications. This concludes the report of the Metro North Long Island Committee.
Thank you. The Bridge and Tunnel Committee report is next, and its chairman is Alan Capelli. Alan?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Bridges and Tunnels Committee met this month. We had a full and comprehensive conversation exploring all issues and finished on time adopting the Nancy Shrevell management tools that she helped teach many of us in the committees, and I thank her for that. And I report the following. There are no non-competitive procurements. There are 4 competitive procurements in the total amount of $11.321 million. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
Second. Are there any questions or comments? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, there are no ratifications, and this concludes the committee report. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Now I'd like to entertain a motion to convene an executive session to discuss matters relating to collective bargaining negotiations and a matter relating to employment of a person or corporation. Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're in executive session. All set?
Joe, you tell us a little bit more about your trip to Albany and whether you think there's a likelihood of a waiver, and how that would impact your short-term budgets.
I had discussions yesterday at the Budget Division specifically about a waiver for the refunding, $7 billion worth of refundings that would allow us to issue less debt and have greater savings on our refinancing schedule. And
would that reduce the amount of money in the operating budget that has to go to debt service?
over time, it would reduce the amount of money in the debt service budget over the life of the bonds as we're taking the savings. We're not taking the savings all up front, and we're spreading it out over time. So when you issue less debt, you'll have lower debt service to actually incur. The answer to your question is yes.
But is it minimal in this scheme of things? Is it something that could restore a bus line, for example, or is it not of that amount in the early years?
It's not of that amount. I'd have to get back to you on what that dollar amount is, and I'll talk to Bob Ferran and just get an idea. But if you think about it, it would be $50 million, and the debt service on $50 million over 20 or 30 years is not anywhere near enough to put a route back. I mean, the issue is one of fairness and equity. When we understand the need for the state to do this with new money issues, I very much understand this. The question is, what do we do when we're refinancing existing debt? So, in a sense, we're not double paying. Yes, Jen.
Can you tell us how negotiations are going? When you're going to talk to the union again?
I don't negotiate in public nor with the press. I speak to John almost every day, though. I'll leave it at that. And John talks to me every day.
Hi, Joe.
Yes.
Hi. So the MTA restructured its contract with its biggest contractor on East Side Access to cut some costs, also I guess cut back some of the time. Can you talk a bit about that and your hope, or if you have any optimism of being able to shave some significant time off of East Side Access?
I am optimistic about shaving some time off of East Side Access. As it's been acknowledged, it is delayed, and I'm doing our best to make sure that all of the issues that we have in building the East Side Access, and you have to understand. The biggest issue there is what's going on the Long Island side, especially going through the yards and all of the switches in there. It is very complicated. It impacts not just the Long Island Railroad, but also Amtrak and others that go through there. Every now and then, New Jersey Transit's also in the yard because they use it during the day as a holding place. It's very complicated to do, and we're working our way through that. And I feel very comfortable about what was renegotiated with Dragados, the main contractor. Thanks.
Do you have a new date?
There must be. I don't know it, Tina.
Those bus service changes, the seasonal changes, are those all going to go into effect in April then? I guess some community boards were complaining about some of them.
I'll get back to you on that. I think, it's our expectation that they will go forward. The community boards have the right to express themselves, and we'll let them express themselves, but the decision is totally with the MTA.
Moving forward on the shutdown of different lines like the 4, 5, and 6 a couple of weeks ago, how do you feel about the economic benefit of doing that? Did it pay off in your eyes? It sounds like there's a lot of feedback of getting things accomplished, but what do you think about how it went financially and what you're hearing back from commuters?
I believe what we're hearing back from commuters as well as the economics, the initial program was a success. The initial one being the 4, 5, and 6 trains being shut down from 10 o'clock at night till 4 or 5 in the morning for 4 nights in a row, a program we call Fast Track. Obviously, we're going to, it was the first time through, and the first time through was a great success. It saved tens of millions of dollars. I haven't gotten the exact numbers yet, but on its face, it did a tremendous amount of good. Most people I have heard anecdotally, riders who have come up to me have said, the stations look brighter. That's because all of the light bulbs were changed and or cleaned, and the backings were, the yellow strips were painted. The amount of muck that was removed, for lack of a better term, from the tracks was extraordinary, and it allowed, when you have 250 workers down on the track all at once, they are working together as a team, it went phenomenally well. And we're a 100-plus-year-old system. This is one of the ways in which we're going to try to do the repair and maintenance and maintain a good state of good repair as quickly and expeditiously as possible. We realize it could inconvenience some people. We're doing everything we can to mitigate that.
A few more? Tim?
How are you the biggest challenge that you see faced as you now get into the job? How do you see your biggest, or what do you see as your biggest?
There's a lot of big challenges, Tim. To be able to prioritize them would be unfortunate for each and every one of those challenges. But I do believe, as I've spoken before at the last meeting, one of the things I want to do is to begin the process and to continue to enhance the image of the MTA. I also want to make sure that we get our finances, continue to keep them in order. As you know, we are still in a fragile budget condition, but most importantly, and I never lose sight of this, the fact that 8.5 million people take the subways, the buses, Metro North, and Long Island Railroad every day, and I want to make sure they can do that safely and securely, and that's also a priority. Each one of those priorities I work on, not in any priority order, just all at once, all the time. Thanks.
Anybody else? Tell us anything about the series of accidents, four accidents in some way?
Just to be clear, there weren't accidents. There were unfortunate incidents, and in light of the problems that have happened, our sympathies go out to the families of all of those involved.
Hi, can you just talk about the possibility, if there was a strike, what it would do, a worker strike?
I will not comment on that at all. I won't even use that word. Thank you.
Thank you.